What is wrong with this team? Everything. I don't know what is wrong. Like it's just never easy, is it?
What is going on with this team? Seriously, everything is just never easy, is it? The drama unfolding around the Indiana Fever isn't just minor turbulence. It's a full-blown Category 5 storm hitting the front office, and it's raising huge questions about how the league's biggest star is being handled. We're talking about a situation where former GM Lin Dunn didn't just lightly criticize Stephanie White. She essentially launched a full-scale, zero-breaks attack on social media, leaving the Fever fan base reeling and asking what the DMN is happening.
I'll say it. Fire Stephanie White. Oh, boy. Oh, boy.
Let's not sugarcoat this circus.
This mess inside the organization isn't just bad optics. It has the potential for some serious long-term ripple effects, especially on Caitlin Clark's budding professional career. This isn't some petty online feud. This is a public exposure of what seems to be a fundamental disconnect at the highest levels of the franchise, and it could completely flip the narrative on how the Indiana Fever, and perhaps the entire WNBA, approaches building around generational talent. It makes you wonder, how do you feel about the suits upstairs or sideline staff, potentially dictating how coaches handle players who redefine the game? Should Coach Stephanie White be held accountable for the team's struggles, or is she just not being given the tools or time? This is a circus, and we need to unpack every wild detail.
Like Lin Dunn posting, and this is again the former like GM of the Fever, who's now something to do with the Fever. I don't know what her role is. She goes, don't expect the players to do it if you don't drill it.
Remember how this season was supposed to go? The Indiana Fever rolled into the year looking like they were putting together a genuine super team. They weren't just drafting promising rookies. They went out and specifically acquired savvy veterans with proven postseason resumes. Natasha Howard, Sophie Cunningham, Sydney Colson. They were collecting battle-tested leaders like assembling the basketball version of the Avengers. On paper, it was a dream squad, built not just for the future, but seemingly to compete now. They had the pieces, they had the hype, and they had the #1 pick who had completely revolutionized the sport's popularity. But in reality, the execution has been messier than a toddler finger painting session after a long day. Losses have piled up, sure, but it's how they're losing, and specifically who seems to be underutilized. That's the real failure.
I mean, this offense looked awful, and Sydney Colson, my God, is terrible running point guard on this team. Terrible.
And here's where things truly go off the rails, and the core of the problem is exposed. It's not just the win-loss record causing the spiraling. The most glaring issue, the one that has everyone scratching their heads in disbelief, is how Caitlin Clark, the most electric offensive player the league has seen in years, someone who didn't just break records, she broke the internet and brought millions of new eyes to the WNBA, is being handled on the court. Instead of building the offense around her unique game-breaking abilities, what does Stephanie White seem determined to do? She takes the ball out of her hands, forces her into a dull, lifeless motion offense, and essentially puts half the fan base to sleep with the stagnant play. Frankly, the offense has looked awful, and watching players like Sydney Colson, running point guard for significant stretches, has been, well, a challenge. This isn't the dynamic, free-flowing offense that propelled Clark to superstardom. It's the opposite.
They had 0 fast break points. 0 fast break points on the game. 0. 0 fast break points. I don't care what this score ends up.
For those blessed enough not to understand the specifics of this motion offense, imagine a bunch of players constantly running around, passing the ball side to side, playing hot potato on a loop, hoping something magically opens up after 20 seconds of action. That's it. It's a system that often feels designed for high school scrimmages or college teams without a singular dominant offensive engine. And when you have someone like Caitlin Clark, someone with unparalleled court vision, passing ability, and the ability to pull up and drain shots from anywhere past half court, shoving her into that kind of offense isn't just a strategic misfire, it's borderline sabotage of her unique talents and the team's potential. It's like buying a Lamborghini designed for speed and thrills, then insisting it can only ever be driven at 20 mph. You are actively wasting its purpose and capability.
Stephanie White is getting destroyed today. Ken Swift posted this, a picture of what's supposed to be Christie.
And then came the explosion felt across social media. Lin Dunn, a figure deeply embedded in the Fever organization, once the team's GM and now, somewhat awkwardly, shifted into a vague senior advisor position, clearly decided she had reached her breaking point. She posted a very pointed statement online. It sounded simple enough, something to the effect of, "You can't expect players to execute what you don't drill in practice." On the surface, harmless coaching advice, right? But let's be completely honest. The timing, the source, and the context all scream that this statement was dripping with shade, directly aimed at Stephanie White and the coaching staff's perceived shortcomings in preparation and strategy. You don't need to be a rocket scientist or even just a casual observer of the league to figure out exactly who that message was intended for. This wasn't a general observation. It was a public declaration of dissatisfaction from within the organization itself, coming right after another brutal loss, where the offense looked completely directionless and the players seemed lost and visibly frustrated.
Like, they were embarrassingly bad without Caitlin Clark. They were just embarrassingly bad. And I mean this. A good coach will figure something out. A good coach will figure something out. Does this team play defense? No. No. I mean this. This team doesn't play defense. They've just gotten lucky. Teams miss shots. They've gotten lucky. Teams miss shots. They don't play defense. They still don't play defense. I know they held the Mystics to 83 points. This was a Mystics team who were not shooting well. They don't play defense. They don't defensive rebound. They don't put in any effort. And that's on coach. That is on the coach.
Lin Dunn didn't just throw shade in that post. She practically printed out a playbook of everything she believed was wrong with White's coaching and slid it across the internet for everyone to see. And the fans? Oh, they are far past done being polite. The online comment sections and social media feeds are filled with vitriol and disbelief. As one particularly savage comment put it, the fans are turning on Stephanie White, and they are doing it fast. These aren't just casuals who tune in once a week. These are ride-or-die Fever supporters who have stuck with this team through years of rebuilding, through thick and mostly thin. If they are flipping the switch this early in the season, that's not a small red flag. That's a colossal neon billboard screaming in downtown Indianapolis. We've seen enough. This isn't working. They watched the team look embarrassingly bad, even without Caitlin Clark on the court for stretches. Highlighting the systemic issues aren't just about her adaptation, but the team's overall lack of functional offense and, importantly, defense. Because, let's be real, this team does not play defense. They've gotten lucky with opponents missing shots, but the fundamental effort and execution on that end simply isn't there. And that ultimately falls on the coach.
I'm sorry. There is no way you can have 0 fast break points a team unless you are actively trying to not run. Unless you are trying to not run. You cannot have 0 fast break points as a team. Someone just said it, no defense, no offense, no fight. Outside of Lexi Hull and Aaliyah, or not even, I can't even blame Aaliyah Boston. She didn't touch the ball.
What makes all of this extra maddening, extra hard to stomach for anyone watching, is that this whole potential disaster felt completely avoidable. People were sounding the alarm months ago, during the draft and the lead-up to the season. They warned it was a horrible idea to take someone as creative, as inventive, and as fundamentally freewheeling as Clark and try to shove her into a rigid, predictable system like motion offense. They begged the staff, they implored the organization to build the team around her unique talents, to adapt the scheme to her strengths, not the other way around. But nope, White clearly thought she knew better, or perhaps was unwilling to deviate from her established system. And now, just a few weeks into the season, the results are speaking for themselves, loudly and unequivocally.
Ceiling by becoming a first-team All-WNBA player in year 1. You don't rein her in, you unleash her.
But the Fever got rid of her, and the Fever got rid of her coach. They got rid of her, and they got rid of her coach. They got rid of exactly what she wanted to do. And you know what? I hate saying this. Lin Dunn was probably right when she said it should be a 5-year plan to improve. That the plan to improve should be a 5-year thing.
And here's the part that'll truly bake your brain. Stephanie White recently got fined for publicly criticizing the referees. Think about that for a second. She directed her frustration outwards, towards the officials, when perhaps, just maybe, she should be spending that time, energy, and focus worrying about her own playbook, her own team's execution, and the glaring issues with her own system. Because what is demonstrably killing this team isn't a missed call or two. It's the fundamental strategic approach that seems to be actively wasting the once-in-a-generation talent they were handed. The priority seems backwards, focusing on external factors rather than fixing the internal rot.
I actually think that she was right in saying that. She was 100% right, and they fired her to quick fix it. Which is, a little bit disappointing. It is a little bit disappointing.
Let's talk concrete data, because the numbers don't lie, and they paint a stark picture. When Caitlin Clark is on the floor for the Indiana Fever, the team's offensive rating is a respectable 107.5. That indicates an offense that can function and score efficiently. But here's the truly shocking number. When she is off the floor, Indiana's offensive rating absolutely craters to a pathetic 82.2. That is a staggering 25.3-point swing. That isn't a small drop-off indicative of losing one good player. That's a complete systemic offensive collapse. It suggests the entire offensive structure relies so heavily on Clark bailing it out or finding miracles that it ceases to function at even a basic level without her. It's also reflected in baffling stats like having 0 fast break points in games. How is that even possible for a professional team unless you are actively trying not to run? Unless the system is designed to be so slow and deliberate that transition opportunities are deliberately ignored?
Screens, passing blindly, waiting for fate to hand her an open look. It's backwards, and it makes Lin Dunn's criticism hit harder.
I legitimately just cannot believe this is going on. We're turning into the Chicago Sky. Why are we turning into the Chicago Sky? We're turning into it's becoming dysfunctional. You're now seeing all these memes.
This so-called motion offense is theoretically supposed to promote flow, quick reactions, and rhythmic play that gets everyone involved. What it seems to really be doing in Indiana is suffocating playmakers, stalling any kind of offensive momentum, and turning potential highlights into mundane sideways passes. With someone like Clark, who sees the court in 4K resolution before others even blink, you want her improvising, slinging creative passes, pushing the pace, and creating magic. Instead, they've got her standing around, waiting for the ball to come back to her, passing sideways, trying to fit into predetermined cuts that aren't leading anywhere. You wouldn't tell Steph Curry that he's only allowed to shoot layups, would you? So why is Clark being boxed into an offense that limits her most potent weapons? Why try to fit a square peg into a round hole when the peg is a national phenomenon and the hole is just a hole?
Christy Sides and Caitlin, how's Stephanie White's offense treating you? And I mean this when I say it is pretty damn bad. Pretty damn bad when it comes to Caitlin.
And don't even get people started on this apparent strategy of trying to take the ball out of Caitlin's hands or reduce her primary ball handling duties. This woman is already a living legend. She led Iowa to back-to-back national championship games, shattered every major scoring record imaginable in college basketball, single-handedly turned the WNBA into must-see national TV, and redefined the rookie ceiling before she even played a single pro game. She wasn't just good in college. She operated a free-flowing system where she had the reins, called the shots, and lit up scoreboards, accounting for over 50 points via buckets and assists in games just last week when she was finally allowed to run the show. You don't reel that kind of talent in. You unleash it. You hand her the keys and get out of the way. Yet, the Fever staff, led by White, seem allergic to doing just that, preferring to jam her into a system that systematically kills everything special about her game. Adding another awkward layer to this saga was the departure of Dana Bonner. She flat out left the team earlier this season, and it wasn't reportedly due to X's and O's in a vacuum, but because the system itself was too rigid and couldn't adjust to incorporate her effectively. Relying on such fixed player movement and predetermined patterns means that losing a piece like Bonner leaves a massive, gaping hole that cripples the offense. In a Clark-centric system, one built around her ability to create regardless of who is on the floor, you lose Bonner, but Clark still controls possessions, still generates offense, still finds ways to score or set others up. That's resilience built into the scheme. A rigid motion system, however, shows its fragility when a key component is removed, proving the underlying concept might have been flawed for this roster from the start. The fact that Lin Dunn, of all people, is sounding the alarm makes this situation exponentially more significant. Dunn isn't just a former executive, she is the architect of the only championship run in Indiana Fever history. She was on the coaching staff when the team took the whole thing in 2012. She knows what a winning culture looks like. She knows what successful WNBA basketball looks like, and she knows what it takes to build a cohesive, effective team. When someone with that kind of resume, with that deep historical knowledge of the franchise, starts raising eyebrows and airing grievances publicly, you can better believe there is a substantial fire where that smoke is coming from. It adds an undeniable weight to the criticism and exposes a potentially deep rift between different levels of the organization. Her remark about drilling what you want applies on a much more fundamental level than just practice drills. It applies to the philosophical approach. If the front office envisioned Clark leading a talent-based, dynamic offense, but the coaching staff insisted on installing a rigid closed system, you end up with this exact kind of tug of war. And guess who gets pulled apart and suffers the consequences? The team on the court. If you need even more proof that the system, not just the players, is the core issue, look at how other successful teams in the league operate. Look at Vegas with Aja Wilson. Look at New York with Sabrina Ionescu and Brianna Stewart. Those teams build around their stars. They don't try to system them into oblivion. They embrace the stars' unique skill set, elevate their strengths, and hand them the spotlight, crafting the offense specifically to maximize their impact. They aren't forcing Ferrari drivers into go-karts. The Fever entered the season with championship aspirations. Caitlin Clark herself was crystal clear. Their goal was to bring home a title. But how on earth are you supposed to chase a ring? How are you supposed to compete with those elite teams who empower their stars if you refuse to unleash your best weapon, if you refuse to adapt your fundamental approach? It's like entering the Indy 500 only to set a mandatory speed limit at 60 mWh. This isn't just about X's and O's diagrams on a whiteboard. It's about a fundamental philosophical chasm within the organization. Do you trust your superstar, the player capable of bending defenses and creating offense single-handedly, to direct traffic and create magic? Or do you rigidly cling to a pre-designed cookie-cutter pattern that forces her into a mold she doesn't fit? Adapt to your talent, or expect subpar results and mounting frustration? That is the question every successful sports organization faces. And right now, America is watching the fever grapple with it like a slow-motion train wreck. We see the derailment coming, but the brakes never seem to apply. Lin Dunn's recent social post, while seemingly brief, unveiled a much larger, deeper rift. It exposed a fractured vision between the front office perspective, perhaps wanting to build around Clark, and the coaching staff's execution, insisting on a rigid system. It's a disconnect over the most crucial question: how to utilize the most important, impactful player this franchise has ever had. This isn't just about who runs which drill in practice. It's about who gets to write the fundamental playbook and whether that playbook is designed for the players they actually have. Fans are turning against Stephanie White rapidly. Many, like myself, saw the writing on the wall as early as Game 2. What truly makes this explosion understandable, though still shocking in its public nature, is Stephanie White's recent history. She brought that same motion offense from her previous coaching stint with the Connecticut Sun. And yes, it worked there, but that squad didn't include Caitlin Clark. They had different personnel, different strengths, different needs. Now she's attempting to transplant a system not built for Caitlin's extraordinary playmaking, her vision, her pull-up shooting prowess. It's like a chef attempting to craft a gourmet ramen dish using precious world-class Wagyu beef, only to then serve it over cheap, low-carbon stock noodles. You are fundamentally wasting the premium ingredient by pairing it with a base that doesn't elevate, but rather diminishes its quality. Motion offense sounds feel good on paper. Everyone touches the ball. You spread responsibility. It's equitable. But basketball, at its highest level, isn't always fair. It's often merit-based. If you have the single most dynamic creator on the court, someone who can score, pass, and warp defenses with a glance, you don't democratize the offense. You feed her the ball, get her in advantageous positions, and get out of the way. Clark thrived at Iowa precisely because the offense let her breathe. She averaged elite numbers using her vision, her off-the-dribble creation, her decision-making, operating as the sun the offense revolved around. Indiana's current system, however, turns her into just another cog, moving through screens, making blind passes, waiting passively for fate or the system to hand her an open look. It's backwards, it's frustrating to watch, and it makes Lin Dunn's pointed criticism land with the force of a hammer. I legitimately cannot believe this is happening. Are we watching the Indiana fever turn into the Chicago sky of last season? Are we witnessing the beginnings of the same kind of widely perceived dysfunction that plagued another high-profile team? We're already seeing the memes pop up online. Christy Sides, the team owner, and Caitlin Clark looking distraught, asking, "How's Stephanie White's offense treating you?" And honestly, pretty damn bad, at least when it comes to maximizing Caitlin. Consider Clark's expected trajectory from Rookie of the Year favorite, which she still is, despite the team's struggles, to potential future MVP contender. Instead, she's currently caught trying to contort her game to fit inside a rigid offensive framework that simply doesn't align with her natural strengths. and it's clearly affecting both her individual impact and the team's overall performance. The stark jump in offensive efficiency when the ball is in Caitlin's hands isn't just a statistical anomaly, it's proof. They light it up with her running things. They stall and sputter without her, or when she's relegated to an off-ball role. And that reality is infuriating for everyone invested in the team and the league's growth. We've even had brief, tantalizing glimpses of what real potential looks like under a different approach. Remember that game against the Liberty? When Stephanie White finally decided to free Clark from the constraints in the fourth quarter? She exploded, taking over, creating, and completely flipping the scoreboard and the momentum. That's the kind of energy, effectiveness, and winning basketball that comes when you empower a superstar and let her shine, instead of dimming her light or forcing her into a generic box. The Dana Bonner debacle is just another symptom of this underlying problem. A talented player leaving, at least in part, because the system was too inflexible to accommodate her effectively. Lin Dunn's remark about drilling what you want applies on a philosophical level because when your front office, the people who ostensibly set the vision and acquire the talent, envisions Clark as the primary engine leading a dynamic, talent-based offense, but your coach installs a rigid, closed system that hinders that vision, you end up in this messy, public tug-of-war. And as mentioned before, the team is the one that gets pulled apart. Even Clark's brief injury earlier this season, which sidelined her for a few games, served as an accidental stress test of the system. While she sat out, Indiana's offensive rating plummeted. This wasn't just because Clark is irreplaceably brilliant. It was also because the motion system needs everyone exactly in place, executing precise cuts and passes to function at all. That inherent fragility proves the concept might have been flawed from the start for this roster. A smart, adaptable offense should have built-in contingencies, not fail-safes that collapse completely without one superstar. But this motion setup, as implemented, relies on perfect timing, disciplined spacing, and superior basketball IQ from every single player involved. And when you try to build that around a generational guard whose genius lies in improvisation and bending the rules, then ask her to conform, there's often only one outcome: dysfunction and frustrated fans. So, what happens now? Where does this leave the Indiana Fever franchise and the future of Caitlin Clark's early prime years? Will Stephanie White swallow her pride, acknowledge the system isn't working for this roster and this star, and rebuild the playbook around Clark's elite vision and playmaking? Will the front office, potentially spurred by Dunn's public outcry and the mounting fan pressure, step in to correct the course and enforce a strategic shift before real long-term damage is done? Or will they stubbornly double down on this perceived dysfunction, potentially squandering the precious early years of one of the best players on the planet? Other teams around the league are watching this unfold with intense interest. Coaches are strategizing. General managers are making notes. They see a potential opportunity. If Indiana can't figure out how to properly unleash and build around Caitlin Clark, someone else, somewhere down the line, sure will. This isn't just about contracts or short-term performance. Clark is secure there, but trust, chemistry, optimal development, and maximizing potential, that's what's on thin ice right now. Let's keep this in clear perspective. Caitlin Clark isn't just another cog in a system. She is the engine. She is the centerpiece. You don't just make room for that kind of greatness. You build the entire highway designed specifically for her to drive on it at full speed. With Lin Dunn's pointed warning now echoing over this franchise, the ball is squarely in the court of Stephanie White and the Indiana Fever leadership. They either need to adjust, adapt, and pivot fast, building the offense around the talent they have, or risk actively wasting a once-in-a-generation player and all the potential that comes with her. The Fever are undeniably at a critical crossroads. Every late-night Twitter rant, every stagnant motion play, every frustrated stat line, it's all pointing towards a decision that needs to be made, and made soon. Stick to pride and a rigid system, or pivot to pragmatism and build around greatness. Because stagnation isn't a neutral position. It's the active enemy of progress and potential. The clock is ticking, the league is watching, and the fans are demanding change. So, what's your take? Do you think Coach Stephanie White should be fired, or does she deserve more time to figure things out? Let us know your thoughts and theories in the comments below. If you found this breakdown insightful, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on all notifications so you never miss out on the latest drama and analysis impacting the sports world's biggest stars. Click the video on the screen now for more shocking stories you won't believe are real, and we'll see you in the next one.